I am a ghost, haunting the memories I love most. A raccoon, Twilight seemed to herself, eyes weighed down with tea bags. Tea bags that would make the most bitter tea. Up all night, rooting through garbage. But it was her own garbage. Coffee grounds and pencil shavings. Spilled ink and worn quills. Cigarette butts and musty ashes. They all rimmed the center of the laboratory. A room hidden away from the sun and the prying eyes of any of the populace. Twilight pondered, as she had 1,000,000 times before, whether or not a window would do her good. One could easily install it within a day. It would provide some much-needed vitamin D, as well as assist her mind in staying awake. But as she had decided 1,000,000 times before, that would take too much time. She had made the decision 10 years ago. That was all her attention would go towards her project. Blessed, albeit curiously, by Princess Celestia, Twilight had begun working on a device that would provide equine kind with immense power. It would show new things that could be discovered and researched upon that could skyrocket existence as it was known to heights heretofore unimagined. Quite simply, it provided a godlike trait. Omniquence, or omnipercepiquence, would be the most correct terms. But Twilight had instead settled upon omniscience. She liked the way that it rung. And despite her exhaustion, filthy appearance, inside she was more excited than in years. Her work was drawing to its conclusion. The rest of the elements of harmony scattered around the globe, working equestrian aid or other work projects on their own. Twilight found a freedom that she hadn't found in a long time. She grew lonely, of course, but it was not an emptiness. On the contrary, it was a burning emptiness filled with passion. Twilight detected a creak behind her, but disregarded it as she lit a cigarette. "You know, Twilight, those aren't good for you," Spike said in a cautious tone. "None of this is good for me," Twilight replied with a hoarse voice. "The sleepless nights, the stress, the weight of just what it is that I'll be discovering." She cleared her throat. "Don't worry," she continued with a tired smile as she turned her head towards Spike. "I'll quit once my work is done." Spike entered the room, brow furrowed. "And haven't you been saying that's soon?" Twilight's smile grew from tired to almost sadistic. "Yes. I only have a few more, electrics to configure. Today, Spike. Today. Ublade, Unforov, and Delna will all align. This will create a surge of magical energy that no pony has seen for decades." Twilight scratched his head. "And this works how again?" Twilight waved the question off with a simple answer. "CMB. It'll become more apparent and more detectable." Still frowning and beginning to gag on the smoke Twilight was producing, Spike accepted the answer as if he understood. "And when will this be?" "At exactly 12:01. Lunchtime." "Sure. So, if I'm understanding you, today will be the end of 10 years of lonely, dirty work? Figured you might be more excited." Twilight's smile, which had shrunk back to a sane state, once again morphed, this time into something a little more melancholy. "I'm tired, Spike. More so than any of my duties as princess have made me." She stretched her wings. "But I am happier that I've been in ages as well, Spike. Believe me." The little dragon pursed his lips, concerned and not quite sure if he believed. Then again, had Twilight ever lied to him? "All right, Twilight. I'm excited for you too." Twilight's smile became warmer. "Thanks, Spike. Now, will you please give me some coffee so I can stay awake one more final stretch?" Spike nodded, his own warm smile adorning his scaled features. "Absolutely, Princess." And Twilight was once more left alone in the darkness, surrounded by endless diagrams and the scattered machinery, her smoke adding just a little more yellow to the walls. There were smaller scientific landmarks that had been attended by many more ponies. But alas, only 3 were present at the unveiling of this particular one. The air was thick with grime, grim responsibility, and morbid curiosity. Also with pride, but that emanated solely from Twilight. Luna puffed on a pipe, her thicker, sweeter smoke doing battle with the tortured wisps of Twilights in the dimness of the room lit only by candles. Twilight extinguished her cigarette, her 7th in the last 2 hours, on the surface of the great oak desk. All her ashtrays had long since filled, and she hadn't the time to empty them. Her coffee mug stood empty, signaling the end of a long, arduous journey. "My dear sisters," Twilight began, "I'm sorry that this is the pony I've turned into these past few years. A princess such as myself should be more regal and, at the very least, clean." Celestia's mood smile cut through the darkness, but it was laced with concern. Twilight felt a pride, not only towards her machine, but towards the fact that she was about to prove that concern invalid. "The machine you see before you is safe. It has yet to be really tested, but that's only because it cannot without the royal presence of you two." Luna nodded thoughtfully. Twilight returned the nod curtly, and then whirled around to the machine in question. It was not as large as one might picture. It had many moving parts, a projector and some sort of headgear, as well as a roll that splits charts and readings. Twilight first flipped the projector on, and it cast its gray light onto the wall of the room not crammed with notes and blueprints. "Celestia, Luna, watch here. You will see what I see. I have no way of knowing what I'll see. It should not be beyond the comprehension of us princesses, who are veered in immortality in ages past. But I make no compromises." Celestia shifted on her hooves. Twilight trotted over to the machine, speaking. "The process is simple. I sit here." She sat upon a cushion, "and place this on my head." The purple aura lifted an odd device from the side of the machine, a bowl protruding with lights, and a bit to mask the eyes of its wearer. It seemed large enough to be putting something into the head of anyone unlucky enough to don it. "And I switched this lever." Celestia leaned in, eyes wide. Luna puffed thoughtfully. Twilight's body went rigid. Her entire body became enveloped in her own magical aura. The machine began to puff and quiver, steam leaking from several parts. Luna removed her pipe and began taking mental notes. Then they both turned to the clear wall. A mass. A great mass of blackness and spite. It ate at the dusty ground it stood upon, bustling and chanting. And suddenly Twilight became acutely, sublimely aware that she was looking at an army, dressed in grays and blacks, very inconvenient uniforms. It seemed, for the sun was beaming with clouds. They either had trunks or were masked with something from trunks. Their eyes were red, or bipedal. They carried dark banners of an eye, a gear, and a third, stranger symbol which Twilight didn't recognize. Ranks upon ranks of them marched, bipedal aliens, speaking a hideous and guttural tongue amongst one another. Twilight blinked. More masses, but this time larger than ever, even the furthest stars. She saw stars bigger than the universe, and machines bigger than stars. She saw a distant mist, woven from colors she thought she could see. She felt a presence she didn't like. Twilight blinked again. A being was before her. It did not look alive, nor seem, nor sound alive. She knew it was, and somehow she knew it was looking at her. She cautiously blinked this time. A great valley stood before her, wreathed in snow and frost. It seemed to be protecting one thing. A spire, miles high, reaching far above where Twilight had the ability to see. The ground around it wreathed, spitting up metal and fire, and these spires spat fire and metal back. The sounds were deafening. Another blink. Complete blackness. A blackness more omnipresent and oppressing than Twilight had ever known. It seemed not only to block out her sight, but all her senses. Her thoughts felt slow and muddled. A hideous feeling the darkness gave her. She blinked. A world of light. Light that should have been blinding. Somehow wasn't. Lines of lights and unrecognizable letters like a code. Blink. A blasted desert, filled with howling beasts that crawled at the air. Blink. A destroyed city, filled with skeletons of decayed old buildings. Blink. A plain of endless sand, the ground spiked with blades, with massive gears turning on the horizon, seemingly suspended at the edge of the world. Blink. A blank room without windows, walls, vents, or any visible method of ingress. Blink. An underwater abyss, filled with tens of thousands of crab-like creatures, many taller than Twilight or even Celestia, all grimly marching deeper into the darkness. Blink. Blink, blink, blink. Nothing. Nothing at all. No oppression or darkness, but no light either. Blink. Nothing happened. What is this? She felt something seize her. She was mortifying, behind depiction. Not simply because of the suddenness of the action or the darkness, but because Twilight wasn't physically here. On instinct, she blinked frantically, and made the necessary magic incantations to end the god simulation. She came to on the ground, panting and sweating oddly. Celestia and Luna above her. She felt a warmth between her legs. Twilight's older princesses gazed upon her, asking what had happened, if everything was okay. Their words were lost on her, and Twilight began to weep. For all the things she had seen, after so much work, none were within the scope of comprehension to really use.